And call the meeting to order. Good evening, everybody. Welcome. It is Tuesday, March 12th, and I'm going to call this regular meeting of the Catalina Foothills School District Governing Board meeting to order. I welcome everyone here tonight. We do have members of the public attending both in person and remotely through YouTube Live. And in a few minutes, I'm going to read the full rules of order for public comment at the governing board meetings. But just as a preview, if you wish to make a public comment remotely, you should have signed up using the Google form that's available under the YouTube Live description. If you don't see the link to the Google form, refresh your screen and it should show up. If you're attending in person, this purple form should be completed and turned into Paula, our board secretary. And those forms are in the back of the room. If there is no public hearing tonight, so we'll skip over that, and I'm just going to ask you all to stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, so I'm now going to go ahead and read the rules of order for public comment at a governing board meeting. The governing board welcomes public comment at its meetings by providing 2 opportunities for the public to address the board. If your topic of interest is not on the agenda, you may address the board during the public comments time slot near the beginning of the meeting. Or if it is on the agenda, you may speak just prior to the discussion of that agenda topic. If you're joining remotely and wish to make a public comment, you should have already submitted your Google form provided with the YouTube link. For those attending in person, please hand a completed purple form, request to address the governing board, to our board secretary. The information requested on the form is required for our meeting minutes. Speakers will be called on when it's their turn to address the board. For those attending remotely, you may wish to enable your camera. As a reminder to remote attendees who wish to speak, please unmute your microphone when called upon. We noticed that each speaker has 2 minutes to address the board. I'm going to go ahead and increase that to 3 minutes, as I have been doing on a nightly basis, because we haven't had a lot of public comments. So tonight it will be 3 minutes that you're timed at. The sound of a buzzer indicates the end of your time. In the event of a large number of speakers, the board may need to limit the time so they can conduct the business on the agenda. By law, the board cannot discuss, consider, or vote on topics that are not on the agenda. This assures the community they are aware of the topics that will be discussed tonight. If you wish to discuss a topic through written communication, board members' contact information can be found on the district's website. We appreciate the community's attendance and comments at this meeting, and thank you for coming. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Dr. Kammerzell for our item 1.4, which is our Outstanding Achievements presentation.
Thank you. As usual, the first meeting of the month, I'm highlighting the last 30 days of achievements, and like usual, there are hundreds, literally hundreds of student names. So I won't be naming them all tonight, but they will be published tomorrow in the summary of this meeting. It is called The Border and has wide distribution to staff and the community. There are 2 juniors, Samantha Farbarek and Emma Lindsay, who were selected for the 2024 Arizona Girls State. Congratulations to them. Girls State is sponsored by the American Legion Auxiliary. 24 high school students were selected for the Arizona Music Educators Association Regional Honor Choir. 68 band members were selected for the Regional Honor Band and Regional Honor Orchestra Winds. 11 Sunrise Drive students placed in the Chinese Language Teachers Association speech contest. 3 high school seniors were chosen for the Hispanic Heritage Foundation Youth Awards, and the Youth Award honors Latino high school seniors who excel in the classroom and community, and those 3 students are Anissa Madrid, Steph Roja, and Alana Valenzuela. Our Pioneer Robotics team is at it again. They went to state. They won the Motivate Award which recognize their inspiring passion for FIRST Robotics and their ability to ignite that same enthusiasm in others. And congratulations, they were our semifinalists, they're now the finalists for the National Merit Scholarship, seniors Ethan Blakely, Madeline Hall, and Luke Sadala. And finally, theater arts. Congratulations to the intermediate theater arts students, Owen Cantor Goldner, Louisa Stein. They were selected as finalists to participate in the regional Shakespeare competition at the University of Arizona. And all of those student names, more than 100, will be noticed tomorrow. That's my report.
Nice. As always, that's a pretty impressive report. And when I was reading these numbers, 24 students in the regional honors choir, 68 band students, those are huge numbers. Really, for a school our size, it's just amazing.
We will have more tomorrow, actually, in the border, some late-breaking news from this month in the last week or so. Esperero band members, our high school orchestra, so some art students, so read all about it because this is not as comprehensive as it will be tomorrow.
Wonderful. Awesome. Thank you for that report, Mary. We're going to move now to item 1.5, which is our Catalina Foothills Star Award. We have Brittany Griffith here today, our counselor at Esperero Canyon Middle School, and also recently named Arizona Counselor of the Year. Our Vice President of the Board, Amy Kraus, is going to present our Star Award to Brittany.
Good evening, everyone. It is always a pleasure to present a Star Award. It's, you know, on these nights when we have outstanding achievements and then also Star Awards, it's just another reminder of what we strive to do and what we accomplish and what our students accomplish. Yeah, that's your mom up there. Isn't that awesome?
She's famous.
That is awesome. And when I was asked to present this award, we have never met, but I was really delighted because I have to say that in my own awkward middle school years at Emily Gray, just down the road, I had a very special and important relationship with the school counselor there, who I really think of as, you know, one of the shining moments, shining in my middle school career. Middle school can be a tough time, as we know, and I'll talk about that in a minute. So, Brittany, I'm going to invite you up here in a few moments, and Principal Setliff as well. Would you? I can call you Mrs. Griffith. Brittany's, whatever you like. And so, as President Jackson indicated, we're honoring Brittany tonight because she has been recognized as the Arizona Counselor of the Year by the Arizona School Counselors Association, and her nomination was from her principal, Mary Setliff. Before I talk about the award itself, I'm not going to talk about the award really hardly at all. Maybe you could do that. I would like to tell everyone here, board members, administrators, our community, a little bit about Brittany. She is homegrown. She is from right here in Tucson. She went to University High School, where a little birdie told me that she had a teacher named Mary Setliff. It's a small world, although I imagine maybe that's part of the connection and how you ended up at Esperero Canyon in the first place. Brittany is a graduate, as I said, of University High School, and then she obtained her Bachelor of Science degree in psychology from the University of Arizona before moving on to NAU, where she earned her Master in Education in Counseling from NAU. And Miss Griffith began her professional career in school counseling in a place that's a little bit different than our place, Mesa Public School System, one of the larger school systems in the state. And I understand that the caseload there was a little higher than it is here, where there were about 1,000 students per counselor, and here we are so fortunate that our ratio is about 260 to 1. And importantly, along the way, Miss Griffith partnered up with her husband of 13 years, McKinley, and they have 2 children who are here with us. There's Lincoln and Arthur. Thank you all for being here. So now, a few words about school counselors in general. In Foothill School District, we see counselors as vital members of our school's educational team that helps students succeed. Counselors use data, and I also heard on the QT that Ms. Griffith is a fan of data in particular, because that is what helps school counselors identify a student's academic needs and their challenges. And they do this by devising strategies and activities that help support and maximize every student's ability to learn. Of course, there's also a social skills component in the school counseling setting. We often think of school counselors as nice adults that students like to go to when they have a problem to solve. And of course, there is some of that. But really what school counselors are doing is helping students to learn and apply self-management skills and interpersonal skills that they can take with them when they leave our place. And finally, in CFSD, school counselors play a very important role in ensuring that our graduates are ready for life beyond high school. That starts in elementary school and it continues through our entire K-12 curriculum. Counselors help students understand the connection between school and career, and they help students plan for and make that transition. Now, everyone knows that middle school students are unique. Those early teenage years are known for many things: rapid physical change, curiosity about the world, finding your identity, and becoming independent problem solvers. To reach these students is sometimes difficult, but Ms. Griffith implemented a student self-referral system that I understand has cut down the amount of time that students are out of class waiting to see a counselor. And in addition, along with her, I heard it referred to as well, I'll get to that in a second. And along with that, Ms. Griffith established a meeting minute where counselors meet with every student on their caseload for 1 minute just to touch base and to establish a rapport. Now, a minute may seem like a short time, but it is really enough for every student to feel seen and heard. I can't think of anything more meaningful to tell another human being of any age that they are both seen and heard. And that meeting minute has a flip side. That flip side is it also enables the counselor to get a look at the student, to make eye contact, to hear their responses. And in that short a time, they are able to tell if there is a need for a more prolonged engagement. It is so important for the student and for the counselors to know when this additional time is needed. And because of that, Ms. Griffith also played an important role in establishing and developing the school's counseling center. It's called the Counseling Canyon. And what she did, along with, I understand, her dynamic duo partner, Garrett Wilton, was develop and repurpose an ISS room that was an underutilized space. And now it's a space where students and families can get together. Students can have a quiet moment. Counselors can meet with students to work on whatever it is they feel that they want to work on. And by writing grants and soliciting donations, Ms. Griffith gathered a variety of furniture and artwork, and she really transformed this place into a place where students want to be. And not only has Ms. Griffith created a welcoming and inclusive environment where students feel comfortable seeking support and guidance, but she's also shared her passion and innovative ideas with other school counselors, both in her school and within the district counseling team, where Ms. Griffith has demonstrated exceptional leadership qualities by fostering collaboration and professional development among our entire counseling staff. And finally, Ms. Griffith brings her passion and her dedication statewide. She is serving on the board of directors of the Arizona School Counseling Association for the 9th year, and she is currently serving as its advocacy committee chair. Ms. Griffith, you exemplify the mission of school counseling in CFSD. And if you didn't know that we had such a mission, we do. And it says this: to provide a comprehensive and responsive program that addresses the academic, career, and social emotional development of all students, enabling them to become responsible, productive citizens and lifelong learners who thrive in a diverse and changing world. Ms. Griffith, congratulations on a well-earned recognition. Your school community, your school district, and its governing board are proud that you have chosen to do your professional work here. Our students have benefited greatly from it. So, with that, I would love to invite you up here, and I will show you that we are going to give you this wonderful certificate in recognition of your honor as School Counselor of the Year, and a pin, a Star of Excellence, that actually reflects you as it does us.
Yes.
And we thank you so much for being a part of our school.
Thank you so much.
And I'd like to give you an opportunity to say something, and also Ms. Setliff, if you'd like to join us. Yeah. Yeah. In 1 sec. Go ahead. I know I stole a lot of that from your nomination letter, but I imagine you might have something else to say.
Well, many years ago, when Brittany Murray appeared in my AP class, I knew one thing. She would get an A because she had set her mind to it. And she set her mind to transforming our counseling department and to partnering with Garrett Wilton, her wonderful other half, and I would say at work. And middle school is just so enhanced by a fine counseling program and fine people to greet children in whatever state they're in. And sometimes that can be really challenging. And I just want to say that I just so believe in our district vision of, of course, of really in just really including counseling in part of the district mission and vision. It's something that you cannot value. I mean, when you think about 1,000 students versus 250 per person, it's absolutely phenomenal. I just want to say one of the great pleasures in my life and honors in my life is to work with someone I have taught. And so I have two people at my school that I personally taught, and it's just so wonderful to see them grow up and they become our colleagues. And so I just
Wonderful.
thank you.
Thank you.
You're well deserved, my dear.
No pressure, but if you want to say something, you can.
Thank you very much for recognizing this. This is very much an honor to be recognized by our district. And thank you so much for embracing school counselors as a community and as a staff. It means everything to me to be able to do what I do and be able to do it to the extent that I can due to the support from governing board and our administrators and all of our parents and families. And I would also like to thank my wonderful families who's here. I'm joined by my husband and my children, my mom and my dad, my mother-in-law, and my brother-in-law. So I couldn't have done all that I've done without these wonderful people in the room with me. And of course, thank you, Ms. Setliff, who's been there, all along the way. And as it's already been pointed out, a huge shout out to, as Amy said, my dynamic other half, Garrett Wilton, who makes this possible. So thank you again.
Thank you. Who get the picture? Cute kids. Growing.
Congratulations, Brittany. And thank you, Amy, for a great presentation. Thank you very much. Now, we are going to go on to the rest of our meeting. We're going to go next to our public comment section. I did want to let you know, everyone here is welcome to stay. You've had a long day at work, so we certainly understand if you prefer to get on with your evening, but by all means stay if you'd like to stay. But otherwise, of course, we understand if you have elsewhere to be this evening. And from there, we're going to go ahead and segue into our public comments. Thank you all so much for coming.
Thank you for
Congratulations again.
Congratulations.
Okay. I am going to start with, what's that?
That's the most fun thing
It
to
is
do.
the most fun thing.
And diplomas, and high school diplomas.
Yes, it is.
Right?
All right, let's go ahead and start with our public comments for this evening. I'm going to call up Mary Lou Richardson, who's a district resident and a former board member of this fine district.
Yes, and I think this should probably go a little more
Yes,
this way, right? Okay.
Oh, yeah.
I remember a few things.
Sorry.
I remember a few things, so.
I don't think we had that when you were here.
We didn't have this.
Oh, we were in the high school.
Let's remember.
We were in the high school.
Good point, good point.
Okay, so, good evening. I would like to reflect on my past 27 years as a district parent, a district grandparent, a 3-term governing board member, and a community member. In 1997, during relocation to Tucson, my husband was on Sunrise Drive on a Tuesday evening. He called me back in Illinois. I think there's a school board meeting going on. I said, go in, just check out the atmosphere. He calls back. Good news, congenial, professional, organized, and respectful. Perfect. After the meeting, board member approaches him. Hi, I'm Cliff Altfeld. Welcome. Who are you? Why are you here? Just checking out the atmosphere. Cliff responded, basically the board's job is to find the best superintendent there is and then get out of his or her way. I think we have found her in Mary Camersell. Now our only job is to not screw it up. I know Cliff is resting in peace. That board did find the best superintendent, and the rest of the boards have not screwed it up. In the run-up to the last school board election, I was contacted by a voter who said, there's a lot of conflicting noise in the community surrounding this election. What can you tell me about the current superintendent? I was delighted to enlighten him. I know firsthand for the past 28 years, Mary Camersell has been and is the best superintendent in Arizona, and I suspect in the nation. And here's why. She models excellence and expects excellence. She is gifted with an intelligent mind, yet never rests and is tireless in adding to her body of knowledge, researches endlessly, gathers data constantly. She's a person of principles whose actions and decisions are based on those principles. Every student actually does come first in all her decisions. That is not rhetoric. Sometimes that works for the adults involved, sometimes it doesn't. But even so, the student's needs supersede. She will change her mind if she thinks that's warranted. She's a champion of the strategic plan. She is a chess master in succession planning for every position in the district. She has built a district of excellence which attracts a community of excellence searching. She built it, they came, they are still coming. So Mary, 28 years, thank you for everything, and the best of everything to you in the future. And to quote the most popular book ever written, well done, good and faithful one, well done. And to the governing board, excellent work on the succession plan. Thank you.
Thank you, Mary.
Thank you, Mary Lou. Now, we do have at least one commentator online, and I just want to give them a heads up. I'm going to call one more person in the room just to have you guys be able to get ready, and then I'll be calling there next. So we're going to go to Anjali Matalone.
Okay, I also came today to share my gratitude to Dr. K. and your amazing service to our community. My name is Anjali Matalone. My husband and I are both CFSD alums. We met in kindergarten at Sunrise and graduated 2001 from the high school. We have 3 boys now in the district, and I've served on various FFOs, but 3 years at Sunrise. And working with Dr. Karmazel, you see that not only are you such an intelligent, strong, intimidating woman in the best way possible, but you are also warm and super witty and fun. But what I always appreciated the most was that you always felt available and accessible. You always responded. You always had advice and a solution of some kind. You truly cared about each student, family, and our community and whatever issues were at hand. I do not think that that is common, and I think that that is one of the reasons that we all want to celebrate you. My dad, Dave Knoll, served on this board 28 years ago. I asked him if he had a message to relay tonight, and he simply said that it was the best vote he could have ever cast, and that you came at a time that we needed you the most. He always said that what made CFSD different and great is the parents' involvement in the community. You always understood that and understood this community. You brought your perspective of your years of teaching and principal and blended it to being an administrator. You understood all sides of the equation, and you always put kids and families first. Having my dad serve on the board, I have so much appreciation from what you and all of you do. So thank you. I remember calls from irate parents to our house 30 years ago, upset about school zoning or if Mac or versus Microsoft was the way of the future. And being the longest running superintendent in Arizona did not come without its challenges. I know how stressful it is, and I just want to express how grateful I was to have you at the helm of the ship during the difficult times. You were always able to see calmly through the noise and react without adding to the drama. I am proud to be a CFSD alum, and I'm proud of the men that my boys are becoming. I know there's a lot of negative talk about this generation, as there always is about every generation. But I see and talk to these kids every day, and I'm proud to see a future of hardworking, driven, caring, productive members of society, and you've been a piece of that puzzle. Your legacy will continue in the standard that you set and in all those that you inspired. I hope this next chapter is full of fun because you deserve it. Thanks again.
Thank you. Okay, we're going to go to our first online commentator this evening, and that would be Joshua Tint.
Thanks, Josh.
Thank you.
Thank you, Josh.
Now, Ryan, it's not clear to me, is there a second commentator online? Okay, I thought so, because it wasn't a complete entry. I just want to make sure I'm not skipping
Isn't he a
anybody.
computer science major?
Okay. Then we're going to come back into the room. We've got Jacqueline Dalbely.
Good evening. I'd like to preface my comments by saying that my daughter approved them because they're primarily about some of her interactions with the CARE program. I wanted to bring some attention to the CARE program in our district because I don't think that we talk about it enough. Specifically, I thought that the board would like to know how employment with CARE has had a positive impact on my daughter beyond earning a paycheck. My daughter spotted a digital flyer in the senior counseling classroom advertising CARE employment. Having only worked for our family business over the summers and doing occasional various odd jobs for neighbors such as watering and tortoise sitting, she had been considering a formal job during the school year once marching season ended. So, after showing me the flyer, she took it upon herself to apply for a CARE activity leader role. I was surprised because as an only child, her exposure to younger kids has been minimal outside of cousins she sees sporadically, and she didn't grow up babysitting. Plus, her schedule can be really busy. Nevertheless, it seemed like a good opportunity. She applied, approached various non-family adults she interacts with to act as references, had her interview, and was hired and approved by the board last fall. Working at Sunrise Care has opened up a side of my daughter that has been delightful to see. She manages her schedule and communicates changes to it based on her activities, enjoys making and saving her own money, and received a real-world lesson in taxes when she received her first paycheck and asked, "What is FICA? And why does it take so much of my check?" Which elicited a big laugh from me and her dad and led to a family discussion about taxes. Importantly, she really appreciates the flexibility with her schedule. There's no late nights or weekends. She can work around her various school music commitments, and she has the option to pick up more hours over school breaks and closures. But in my opinion as a parent, the best part has been seeing her thoroughly engaged with the younger kids she watches. She comes home and at the dinner table tells us all about their crazy antics, the crafty things they do, one of which, a whale made from beads, is now taped to her bedroom door, and how fun they are to be around. When asked if she loves her job, she replies with an enthusiastic yes. This experience has had me thinking. By hiring high school students for CARE, the district is providing more than just an opportunity for them to make some money. It is also providing opportunities for their own personal growth. But even bigger than this is the role modeling that these high schoolers are doing for the younger kids. They are taking an interest in them and their lives, helping them navigate the playground and friend issues, and working with them to problem solve. They are showing the younger kids responsibility and developing positive relationships across the age groups and schools. To the kids she watches, she is Miss Sienna, a big kid who takes an interest in them and has fun being with them. But for my daughter, being a part of CARE is teaching her skills on how to interact with the younger kids, how to have patience and problem solve, and it lets her have fun doing a job she enjoys and has led to her developing her own financial goals. I'm pleased to say this year she will be purchasing her prom dress, not me. As a parent, I am glad to see the social and emotional development in my sometimes jaded teen daughter. She wants you to know that she's really not that jaded. That's just my perspective. I also appreciate that the district has chosen to look to its own students to fill these caregiver positions. I love that by doing so, relationships, community, and bridges are being built among our younger and older students who might not otherwise interact. Thank you for having this employment opportunity in place, and thank you for your time.
Thank you. Your comments? Might be growing a future CFSD teacher program? All right, we have one last commentator. Let me just double check and make sure I don't have anybody else who jumped in online. I don't see anything. Okay, Dana Haug, and I don't know if I'm saying your last name correctly. Hogue, okay.
I'm extremely nervous. I'm a lot braver behind a keyboard, but I just wanted to put a face to the person who's been flooding the inboxes of our board members and superintendent and associate superintendent for the past year and a half. I put these thoughts together using talk to text as I was just driving here because I wasn't even planning on attending this meeting tonight until about 30 minutes before the meeting. I had many families that were wanting to come and they were texting me, "Is tonight the night?" And I said, "No, let's just hold off. Let's wait until we can actually get put on the agenda." As you saw in my email that I sent this morning, I've requested that our safety concerns get added to a future meeting agenda. The amount of messages I've received from families telling me awful accounts of things that have happened to their children just shatters my heart. Furthermore, it saddens me that these families feel the need to share reasons why they don't feel comfortable speaking up. I am literally begging some of these families, like, if you have pulled your child from the school to attend another school, please reach out to the board and share your accounts as to why, because your child is not the first victim and will not be the last, given certain circumstances that I've seen play out over the last 2 years. Many of these people who are afraid to speak up are district employees, or they have ties to the school that make them feel like they don't want to rock the boat. But being a concerned parent and advocating for your child is not rocking the boat. It's just being a good parent. The question I have for all the board members to just think about yourselves is, if this was your children, your grandchildren, or your friends' children, would you feel like you could actually recommend they attend Ventana Vista Elementary, given everything you have been hearing from parents, from staff members? You've heard the accounts of many Ventana Vista families, including myself. I think it was like a 13-page document that I sent you over the past 2 years of just things in my personal experience. When my own second-grade son is getting into the car every day after getting off the bus and breaking down into tears because he's being bullied at school, and his older brother tells him, just talk to the principal. I have to bite my tongue knowing good and well that's just not going to do any good. And that's a problem. This isn't just about my kids, though. I care very deeply about all the students at Ventana Vista Elementary, perhaps, obviously, too deeply. Our community is comprised of families I met at the breastfeeding support group when our 10-year-olds were newborns, or families we met while attending baby time and toddler time at the Zeus and Berry River Library. Even more attended Spanish at Little Cardboard Rockets parent caregiver classes, and these are the kids that I taught in toddler classes at Little Cardboard Rocket. That were the kids I was substitute teaching. So these kids feel like my children. And of course, there's even more family that we met here at Valley View when my 2 sons started CFSD's Spanish immersion program. When families have shared their concerns, they've actually heard the phrase, if you don't like it here, then leave. And personally, I don't want to leave our wonderful school community, and it breaks my heart to see that so many of our community members are choosing to leave. And even worse, teachers that are wanting to leave but are choosing not to because they say, I can't make my salary anywhere else. And as I've said in my very first email, or one of the first that I sent in the fall of 2022, I really am here to advocate for everyone. And I want to be more than just a squeaky wheel parent, and just be someone who can offer actionable solutions. And I don't know what more to say, but please consider adding us to a future agenda. Thank you.
Dana? Okay, I think that's going to bring our public comment to a close. I have no further folks online. Thank you, everyone, for speaking. I will issue the same invitation to folks who are here. If you would like to stay and watch the rest of our board meeting, we're very happy to have you, but certainly understand if you have other places to be this evening as well. All right, we will move on to our consent agenda. Does anyone have anything from the consent agenda that they wish to pull? Anybody? I don't think I had anything to pull. Anybody have any items that they wish to discuss on the consent agenda?
No, but we want to point out that we did make a correction to the minutes.
Yeah.
And
Saw that.
It's in front of you, highlighted with the change about the last board meeting.
Yes. Got it? Well, if there is no discussion.
Sorry, I have one item, but it's only because when I was prepping for the meeting, hold on a second, my bag is tied up in my chair. My chair's tied up in my bag. When I was prepping, I just didn't see it, so I apologize. I was just curious about the stadium track refurbishment, if there's, is it because it's just age and it's time?
Yes, it is
Just
time.
come due,
We're going with the more permanent solution, a 20-year life. So
Awesome.
that's why the pricing is a bit higher than it might otherwise be, but we think this is gonna be something that will sustain us for years. But yes, the track has to be refurbished in some way. We're choosing to recommend replacing it.
Thank you.
Reinforced post-tension concrete track.
Right.
That goes
That's-
underneath.
It
That's,
sounds pretty solid, doesn't it?
Theoretically, it should withstand the heat and the cold if it's
Yes.
well reinforced, right?
No tree roots coming through, et cetera.
Right.
Yes, we've been repairing it for a long time, which is frankly the case with all of our tracks, middle school, et cetera. But this one really needs to be replaced. So if we can get this done tonight, we should have it in place by August, football, and, the use of the stadium.
Excellent. It won't cause any disruption for graduation.
No, it'll start after graduation,
Thinking.
like May 20th, or May whatever.
Graduation's
Right,
23rd, so
after
this will be the
graduation.
24th.
Whatever the day is after graduation.
Gotcha.
Wasn't there a time recently when we had to
Yes.
walk?
Yeah, we were on pea
Oh,
gravel.
yeah.
It was on, yeah, there
Little
wasn't
white
even
rocks everywhere.
Because
Oh,
it
yes.
was, we were replacing the
grass.
grass.
In the
yeah.
stadium.
That's when we were, replacing the stadium field.
With respect to the consent agenda, I just wanted to acknowledge my appreciation for pursuing the dual and enrollment piece so that we can continue to, discuss developing that program a little bit more robustly.
I'm assuming
Glad to see
this
it.
is being put in place for the ECE teachers, the early childhood education teachers.
Well, and aren't there a couple more?
Are there a couple more?
Yes.
There are, that's
There are
right.
3 total, I think. There are 3 total
3 total.
programs. I'm not sure.
Yeah, okay. Great.
May I make a motion?
If you guys are ready.
Oh, it's biotechnology with the U of A. Isn't that it? Dual enrollment?
Biotech already is.
Biotech.
That already,
So
that
dual
already
enrollment
is.
not only through Pima Community College, but the university.
Right, yes.
Great.
Okay.
I move that the governing board approve consent agenda items 3.1, the governing board February 27th, 2024 meeting minutes as presented, 3.2, the expense voucher memorandum as presented, 3.3, the personnel memorandum as presented, 3.4, the acceptance with gratitude of the gifts and donations memorandum as presented, 3.5, the intergovernmental agreement between the Arizona Department of Education and Catalina Foothills School District as presented, and the replacement of the Catalina Foothills High School Stadium track as presented.
Okay, we have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
There's a motion and a second. If there's no further discussion, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 4-0. Thank you. All right, we have quite a bit of items under unfinished business. There's quite a few policies that are undergoing a second reading this evening. So obviously they were discussed 2 weeks ago. They're all relatively minor changes, but we were going to go through these and see if we can get some approvals on these second readings. Item 4.1 to Denise Bartlett, we're talking about the approval of revisions to policy and regulation IGNDB, use of technology resources in instruction.
Yes, and even though it's a long policy, there are minor revisions, and after the first reading, there were just a couple of extra revisions that we wanted to put in. On page 1 of the policy, page 44 of the board book, we included up to and including termination, as for anyone who misuses, abuses, or chooses not to follow this policy. That's highlighted on page 1. On page 3 of the policy, or page 46 of the board book, we also included relating to the use of technology resources to make it, to underscore this, the responsibility of all district employees to be knowledgeable of the board's policies, regulations, and procedures. And then, of course, we removed the word floppy disk on page on page 1 of the policy. We also put upon hire to indicate indicate when the policies become effective for knowledge of our employees. And then the adopted change was made, the change of adoption was changed to March 12th actually, tonight, for a second reading. So that's the policy. Was there any questions on that, or should we move into the regulation? Again, only minor changes from the first reading for the regulation as well. On page 2 of the regulation, again, we had to cross out discs and we put in electronic storage devices in its place. On page 6 of the policy, page 54 of the board book, we, underneath the use of personal social media by district employees, in the first bulleted statement, the last sentence was made complete by adding employees shall to the beginning of the fragment that we had there. We had a sentence fragment there. And then on page 6 of the policy, again, underneath the use of personal social media by district employees, in the third bulleted statement, students was added to the list of those who a social media post should not reflect negatively upon. And then, of course, those other changes, on page 2 of the policy, we inserted the word movies. That should not be downloaded as a waste of district resources. Under web publishing, the paragraph was revised to state that school faculty and staff may create electronic homepages instead of shall. We had shall. And then on page 4 of the policy, bring your own device, the term staff or a staff member was added 18 times, just making sure that it was for both students and staff, the policy. And then on page 5, bring your own device, there were 2 parentheticals that were removed because they were outdated. We removed MySpace and Twitter.
Been a while.
Again, just some updating. And Twitter was replaced with X. On page 6, we also put underneath the use of personal social media in the third bulleted statement, or the reputation of the district was added. And the fourth one, it should not reflect negatively on the employee, colleague, or the district. And we added student tonight. On page 7, under the use of school-related social media by the district employees, language was added to the sixth bulleted statement that states and should not reflect negatively on the employee or the district. And then finally, under the use of social media by students, the sub-bulleted statements under the second bullet statement were revised. So we removed the word violence from the first bulleted statement, and then we added a second bulleted statement. It was added to state promotes or incites violence or causes personal harm or bodily injury. And then the third bulleted statement was revised to include stalking in the list. So minor changes, but
It brings our policy up to date.
it does.
Doug, you were unable to be here for the substantive discussion. Did you have anything you wanted to bring up on any of
I
this?
went through the minutes.
Did you?
You guys asked a bunch of questions, like I would expect you to, and I'm all caught up. I appreciate that.
Great. Great. Does anybody have anything else they want to talk about as it relates to the use of technology policy or regulation in our district?
Will you be, sorry, one question, if I may. Will you be reissuing this to all staff so that they're aware of the changes?
Yes, it'll get published, and then we will make sure that the principals get this out. And when they sign their new contract,
They have to
always do
re-sign
that as
this
well.
anyway.
True.
So-
However, we want to make sure that this is applicable as of the
Sure.
time of signing. So I want to make sure that it's going out before, like, to everybody in soft copy at least, right?
Yeah, it does take a little bit of time for us to get it through the policy advisory
Yeah.
through ASBA, so once that gets back, we will distribute it.
Awesome. Thank you.
Question, thank you. Anything else, folks? Is there a motion?
I move that the governing board approve the revisions to policy IJ and DB and regulation IJ and DB-R, use of technology resources and instruction as presented.
We have a motion
Second.
and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 4-0.
Before you go on,
Yeah.
I apologize for my delay in this, but I actually hadn't realized that there was a change to the minutes.
Yeah.
And it looked, from the last meeting, and with the change, which was that Gina had pulled the personnel memo, it was later voted on and approved.
It was.
I don't see that here. I
You
don't,
see the votes down at the bottom. Yay, yay, yay.
yeah, but that, it said, unless I'm reading it wrong, she requested that 3.5 be pulled, and then by motion.
Oh, yeah.
The following motions were read, and then we voted. So I would move to reopen item whatever it is on the consent agenda and make that change.
Well, the consent agenda paragraph has to do with all of them, but then
But then
below it, everyone is individualized. And what we've given you is only this page
Only that
because there's
page.
only one change in the language.
So later, does it say that the personnel memo was
I think it
approved?
does.
Yes.
Oh, okay. I
everyone-
apologize.
Every one of these then gets delineated.
Okay.
In the
okay,
actual
okay.
minutes.
I apologize, my mistake. Oh, gosh, thank
Paula.
you. I'm sorry.
Thanks, Paula.
Thank you, thank you.
No, it's always
should have
best to
known
make,
that
it's
because-
always best to make sure.
I did read this, and I know that that's how it's usually done. That's so funny. It just totally.
Because this is highlighted in yellow.
I think
Just
so.
sort of, yeah.
Okay, so sorry about that.
You good?
No worries.
Go right ahead.
All good.
Go on with the meeting. Don't mind me.
All right, we'll move on to item 4.2, the approval of revisions to policy and regulation, CCB. You okay?
Oh, yeah, it's a big paragraph.
Okay. CCB, line and staff relations. This is a second reading. Dr. Camerzell.
Yes, no changes from your first reading. You didn't have any issues with it, so it's coming back to you in its original form. And as you know, it mainly is about the regulation and eliminating the final bullet that makes reference to a parental satisfaction survey. It's because that particular statute is no longer in existence as far as mentioning it. However, parental satisfaction survey is mentioned in our policy KB, which is about parental involvement in education. So it doesn't go away as a requirement. And as we typically do, because otherwise the date won't get changed for the adoption, we have made very minor but something in the way of a change to the policy so that we can change the date.
We'd like it to be aligned.
Any questions, Amy?
Oh, I'm not asking anything anymore.
You have to
Any
submit your
discussion or
questions in writing
questions on
first.
this? You may always ask questions. Look at her face, it's all red. If there is no further discussion on this, are you guys ready for a motion?
I move that the governing board approve the revisions to policy and regulations, CCB, line and staff relations as presented.
We have a motion. Is there a second?
Second?
And a second. All those in favor of approving the revisions to the policy and regulation CCB? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries 4-0. Item 4.3, approval of revisions to policy CFD, which is school-based management. Again, a second reading, and Dr. Camerzell.
Yes, we did make some changes since the first reading in response to your comments. So as you know, we refer to this as a site council, even though this policy mentions school council. So you will see at your place tonight the policy, because we missed on the second page all of the changes where we added the word site to school. Actually, Paul is the one who caught all of that, my bad. So if you'll take a look at that, that's basically what's happened on that second page. And as you know, and then we have also taken out the phrase ethnic composition. I think this was in response to you, Gina, and made it hopefully more global and put in the terminology diverse demographics of instead of local, the school community, because this is specific to a school and how they organize a site council. And the whole reason for bringing this to you in the first place was that there is no requirement for a number of participants on the council. So we've removed all the references to number and then have struck that entire paragraph on the bottom of the first page to replace it with something that hopefully is more clear about what needs to happen when a site council is initially organized, which frankly has no relevance because we already have site councils at every school. But, you know, it might as well match what the statute requires. So hopefully that met your interest in changing some things. And we hope the title will get changed too. You know, that parenthetical piece at the top, maybe ASBA Policy Services will go with that. Who knows?
All right.
They're a little intransigent about changing language in the title.
There's a future for you.
To join ASBA's policy
Maybe there's a future for you there.
Gee,
That would be fun after retirement.
Oh my gosh. It's on the
All right.
list, like toward the bottom.
On that note, I would like to move that the governing board approve the revisions to policy CFD, school-based management as presented.
I'd like to second it.
There's a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 4-0. We'll move right along to item 4.4. This is approval of revisions to policy EBAA, reporting of hazards/warning systems, second reading. Dr. Camerzone.
Yes, in spite of the title, this is about pesticide application. I don't know why it's
Not
not in
anywhere
the
near
title.
as exciting
Again,
as the
with the
title.
titles.
Yeah.
Okay, so the statutory references were repealed, you know, three of them anyway. And so those legal references were removed. Nothing's changed since you saw this last. Inserted with the most current one. And as you can tell from the changes that are shown on the policy, this is more about what's required as far as notification to parents and guardians when we are about to apply pesticide at a school location. And then also getting more specific about, and it matches the statute, that our families have information about who to contact, that person who's applying the pesticide in case, certified applicator, in case they have questions. And then some information about the product itself and safety data.
Thank you. Anything, folks?
I move the governing board approve the revisions to policy EBAA, reporting of hazards/warning systems as presented.
We have a motion. Is there a second?
Second?
Motion and a second. All those in favor of the revisions to policy EBAA?
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 4-0. Moving on to item 4.5, this is approval of revisions to policy ECB, buildings and grounds maintenance. Dr. Camerzone.
Yes, this particular policy has even more irrelevant and no longer existing legal references. So the one relevant statute, ARS 5832, does not require an indoor air quality plan or a coordinator, so that has been struck. And what has been put in is basically a match to our facility language. A maintenance supervisor will oversee this. And then we've added a paragraph that defines what preventive maintenance means. Other than that, it looks just like it looked when you saw it last.
And I move the governing board approve the revisions to policy ECB, building and grounds maintenance as presented.
For a second?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries 4-0. And our last second reading for the evening, 4.6, approval of revisions to policy EEAA, walkers and riders. Dr. Camerzone.
Yes, we don't have a 20-mile one-way provision in the law anymore about being able to send our buses to pick up students outside of our district. It's now 30 miles. You know, and we gave our comment about, you know, in such a school choice state, we're not actually sure why there should be any provision in the statute about a limitation on miles. However, if you think about it, we probably could get to most places around Greater Tucson, you know, with this 30-mile limit. And then I reflected that we do have a history, you know, of going into Tanque Verde when they didn't have a high school. And it was about 20 miles from our it has to be, in this case, 30 miles, but before it was 20 miles. So from our high school into the district parking lot of Tanque Verde, we went and picked up a busload of kids for the high school. It made total sense that we would figure out how to get them to our place. And of course, it sounds harsh, the inadequate school funding that comes with each child. And then, of course, Tanque Verde built their own high school, so that changed at that point. But anyway, we can, if we choose, for whatever reason, to send buses or a bus somewhere else in the area. Right now, families coming into the district can apply to go to one of our bus stops, a bus stop, where we have capacity, and instead of driving into the school, because none of our parking lots were ever designed to handle the kind of vehicular traffic that we have.
I wonder if the limitation on the miles has anything to do with the transportation funding, because it's per ridership per mile, right? So at some point they have a cap on it. To your point as to why there's even a limit in this day and age of major open enrollment in school choice, but
Yes,
perhaps it has something to do with funding.
It might,
Yeah.
Since our transportation revenue doesn't match what we have to pay.
Wasn't for a long time.
Yeah, I'm not sure. That could be a factor.
Yeah.
As a student in Tanque Verde, without a high school, I got bused to Rincon. It was not a short distance.
Really? Yeah. All right. Anything further on this one? Any motion?
I move that the governing board approve the revisions to policy EEAA, walkers and riders.
Second. There's a motion and a second. All those in favor of the approval of revisions to policy EEAA? Opposed?
Aye. Sorry, I forgot to say aye.
Motion carries 4-0. Thank you. All right, we're going to go ahead and move on to new business. Item 5.1, we hate this item, but it comes up every year. It's part of our procedure. Item 5.1, which is the approval of non-renewable teacher contracts. This is an action item this evening, and I'll turn it over to Dr. Bartlett.
Yeah, so we'll take a short break from policies and go to our list of non-renewable contracts. So for your approval, there's a list of teachers whose contracts will not be renewed for the 24-25 school year with their non-renewal reasons. The employees listed will receive a hand-delivered notice tomorrow morning by their administrator that advises them of the governing board action not to renew their employment. Also attached here is a sample notice that will be delivered to them. Of course, with this, most of these will all be rehired. So that is part of the conversation with that hand-delivered notice, is that we intend to rehire you when in the second round of contracts. So it's a formality, but we need to do this for enrollment and for our staffing purposes.
And this all goes back to the issue of people needing to enroll their kids sooner rather than later,
Correct.
so that we can whittle down this list faster.
Exactly.
So the only thing that makes this a little easier is when you look at the list, I mean, there are teachers who've been with us for
A long time that
A long
keep getting their contracts back, yes. A lot of the retired teachers,
Yes.
the teacher who retired and came back through the program.
the retired,
Part-timers. First year. The certification one.
Yes. This year we've added that because
I thought that was something I had not seen before.
So if we hire a teacher who is not yet totally certified, or if they're going into an alternative certification program, they receive an employment agreement. And those are just one-year agreements.
Gotcha.
And they do expire, but we want to notice them as well, that will expire. have actually a timeline on there, if it's an alternative certification certificate, then there's a timeline that the state gives them on that. So you have to adhere to that timeline.
8. It's not, because I wondered how many teachers we have in a non-traditional or not certified or, and there's 8.
There's not very many.
Not very many.
And just, if we hire them through an alternative certification program, do we require them within a certain period of time to
Yes.
traditionally certify?
Yes.
We do.
Well,
I thought so.
traditionally, it's
Not
never a
traditionally
traditional
certified, but,
certification.
yeah.
It's just, they become certified because they go through an alternative program.
Okay, gotcha. And then, of course, funding. If a position is funded by a particular grant program,
Correct.
until we know that that's going to be renewed, they are also on this list. Okay. All right. Anybody have any further comment? Do we have to twist somebody's arm for the
I'll
motion?
keep rolling.
Keep
I
going.
move the governing board vote not to renew for school year 2024-25 the employment contracts of the employees listed. I further move that the governing board authorize the superintendent or designee to deliver to those listed a notice of governing board action not to renew employment contract. The notifications are incorporated into this motion and are part of meeting minutes.
We have a motion. Is there a second?
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries 4-0. Principals will be busy tomorrow morning. They're always busy. Okay. Item 5.2, consideration of revisions to policy JFABDA, admissions of students in foster care. This is a first reading to Dr. Bartlett.
Yes, so ARS 8-5300 states that an educational institution has 2 days in which to enroll a foster child when the educational placement is needed. The language has been revised to reflect that statutory language. So in the paragraph B, in the middle of the educational institution shall enroll the child in a new school within 2 days. The child shall be immediately enrolled in the new school, even if the child is unable to produce records normally required for enrollment. However, the student may be required to provide the notice to providers document. So that language was added or revised. In paragraph C, the 2 days again was inserted into that. And then at the end of this policy, it was originally going to come earlier, so the adopted date is incorrect on this. It'll be April 9th after the second reading. I'll make those changes. But pretty minor changes for this, and it's really the 2 days.
I'm sure I've read this in the few times that this has come up before us in the past, but I'm surprised to read that it is the educational institution's responsibility to get the child enrolled in the new school as opposed to the DCS worker who is actually that child's guardian.
Well, we don't
Would
really
we
have
actually-
jurisdiction over that.
Pardon me?
We don't really have jurisdiction.
I
over
guess
them.
I'm asking, that is correct, that
It
the
is
way this
correct.
is reading is
Yeah.
that it's our responsibility if a child's leaving us as a school of origin, we actually have to process the enrollment. That's interesting.
What? Say that again?
So,
We process enrollment in another place?
yes, if the decision is made that it's not in the child's best interest
to
to stay
remain.
in the school of origin, I always assumed the DCS
Yes.
worker who is the child's guardian would have to, and in the cases that I've been involved in, they've always done this. They've always done the enrollment. So to read here that it's the school district that is losing the child who who enrolls them elsewhere, that's just interesting to me.
Is 2 days practical? I mean, can that be done?
Has to be.
I know it has to be, but I mean, are there a lot of moving pieces? Or
No.
is- Okay. That's-
Of course, obviously, the whole goal of this is to keep those kids in school
Correct.
and
Yeah.
not have any kind of a break.
Well, and not set up a barrier that they have to have their records and everything, because lots of those kids don't
Right.
come with records, so. Yes.
Well, and it's still an issue. I mean, in some of the stuff that I've been involved in, it's many more than 2 days has passed before a child ends up starting in a new school. But it's a great goal. It's a great goal.
So if I'm reading this policy correctly, it applies to both schools, the leaving school and the arriving school, so to speak, right? The old school and the new school. So the 2 days reciprocity between those two schools, right?
Yes.
Anything else, folks, on this one until we see it again at our next regular meeting? Okay?
Yep.
Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, I wasn't finished, sorry. Do we have a process in place behind this? So should this situation arise, do we have a clear process so that we can move as quickly as
Yes.
we would need to?
We do, and we have, our Director of Special Services is facilitator of that process. So she is engaged with the schools and both our schools and the receiving schools. So she is the person of contact for that to facilitate that process.
Okay, and she works across all of our schools? Pardon my ignorance on this.
Yes, she does.
Okay.
She does.
How many times a year does something like this take place?
Rarely,
Like a couple, maybe?
maybe a couple.
Okay, so.
Not even
very-
a couple.
Pretty rarely, got it.
Pretty rare.
So is that, just to follow up on Gina's point, is the person, the point of contact, the policy requires a point of contact, so that's our Director of
That's our
Special
Director of
Services.
Special
Okay. So, and we don't have to name that person in the policy? Not like,
She's named in a different policy as
Okay.
far as. Yes.
Everybody good?
I think I'm okay now.
Okay. We'll see this again at our next regular meeting. And we will move on to item 5.3, which is consideration of revisions to policy JH, student absences and excuses, first reading. And this goes to Dr. Bartlett.
Yes, so there's an expanded definition of an excused absence. And so we've added that in the first paragraph. So, it includes mental or behavioral health, along with bereavement or other family emergencies, illness, and observance of major religious holidays, the family's faith. So we're including mental or behavioral health in that first paragraph. And then the third paragraph was revised for clarity and to mirror our current practice. Language was removed about the student receiving an admission slip upon return from an absence. There's no admission slip. So that was just removed. And we took out actually necessary to call, but they should call. We would expect a call. And again, sometimes that happens and sometimes it doesn't. And then the date on the bottom was, again, it should be April 9th, not March 12th.
what was the reasoning behind, I understood taking out telephone. Why did you take out telephone as a report to the school office, but then telephone remains? I mean, because I was thinking when I first said, oh, there's no telephone, it's because there's a different reporting mechanism and people don't call anymore, like maybe there's some kind of notification system. But then the next paragraph says, parents should call. So I was just curious why the use of the phone is expected or encouraged in one but not the other.
Well, they can report it through an email.
That's what I
they
was
can
wondering.
report it other ways.
Okay.
We would prefer a call.
Is that still how it works? My kid's not coming in today?
Can I follow up on that? Because other schools are adopting an online form, I've noticed recently, to report absences.
schools?
Other schools.
Other schools.
To report absences, and I'm
That's what I
wondering if that would be easier for the parents, but also easier for the office staff, rather than having to listen to messages and try to understand, student code ID numbers and things like that. The online form is super quick, easy to use.
Yeah, as long as we can verify it's the parent who actually.
Right, and not a child.
I mean, it might result in some spot checks, but, I mean, does our front office staff know the voices of the parents?
Yeah,
Sure.
the repeat offenders.
All 1,900?
Yeah,
Right.
Yeah.
part of our
Voice of the-
development program takes.
Is it? Yeah.
voice of the kid that lives next door.
Yeah,
We can check alternatives there are out there.
I do think that, I mean, if that's, I think that's a good thing I would encourage you to look into, but separate from the policy, of course. Within the policy itself, I'm not comfortable, like, and Amy, you were getting at this. I think the wording is really confusing, between reports it and then should call. And then I just heard you say that they could email, but yet we don't say email
Right.
in here unless I'm missing
I've
it.
circled that, I'll change the should call.
So I think if we can get consistency
Reporting.
on that throughout the policy, I think that would be very helpful.
Yes.
I do have another question.
I'll use the term contact rather than.
Yeah, just say contact,
Just say
yeah.
contact.
Unless we need to list this, the way of contact, the means of contact, and if so, then I think we need to broaden that. The inclusion of mental or behavioral health, obviously, those who know me know that I welcome that as a reason for absence, of excused absence. I'm curious on the, going back to the telephone, you know, given that is how we currently ask parents to report it, you know, we state if the reason is for illness, please state the nature of the illness. Are we going to need to update that script and change that to accommodate this policy change? And if so, do we have any thoughts, be they positive or negative, or concerns or not concerns on that potential change?
I'm not sure I'm
I'm
understanding.
not sure how
So when-
extensive the communication is with the parent about the reason other than illness.
Yeah,
Right, I
right.
don't know.
So when
They-
you
they
call,
don't
If you're
require
trying
them
to
to
get
get that
at, you know,
specific.
whether they have to disclose.
do they have to disclose
You
it?
know, something
Yeah,
like
exactly.
this, one would prefer, I'm sure, not to force that.
Exactly. Yeah.
So we can figure that out.
Yeah. So when you call to report a child's absence,
Yeah.
the recorded message says, if the reason for absence is due to an illness, please state the nature of the illness.
It doesn't need to be more than, it's a physical illness or
Theoretically, you're supposed to say, it's a cold, it's the flu, it's chicken pox, whatever, because it's a way, it's part of
Because
reporting
there's some
back to
illnesses
state.
I wouldn't
And
wanna-
so if it's a contagious illness, then
Yeah.
that gets reported back to the county,
Yeah,
right?
we need to talk about whether that's even required to say the nature.
Right.
It's not an interactive meeting, unfortunately. Okay.
So that, yeah, so anyway, my reason for asking is, if we need to include mental and behavioral health, I think you know where I'm going with this, that could be very difficult on, you know, as a reason.
I don't think we want to do that.
I don't think we want to do
So-
that, exactly.
We'll take a look at what it is that the automatic messaging
Right.
says and script it differently if it's necessary.
Does that tie
Thank
into, sorry, the number of days absent for, you know, to be an excused absence? Is that why there needs to be some reason?
Well, if a parent says the child is ill, it's an excused absence.
Okay, yeah.
I'm not sure we need to know more.
Right.
So, and I'm not even sure about the reporting, you know, as far as health stats. So we'll need to interact with our Director of Special Services, who also oversees health services, and also find out what it is that we are communicating to parents and whether it should be changed. I suspect it needs to be.
It sounds like it. It sounds like it. Thanks, Gina, that was a great point.
Thanks, everybody.
Anybody have anything else? Denise,
We're
I would just.
pleased to know I have nothing else on this one.
No, you're great, you're great. I would just mention, we have been, as we go through these policies, changing parent to parent/guardian.
Good catch.
And we should probably do that in this policy as well.
Good catch, thank you.
Legal guardian.
Legal guardian, yes, that's usually what we say.
Girl's probably sitting on her hands.
Yes.
What's that?
Carol always used to catch those.
Did you think we would forget about it, Carol?
She's texting.
Amy, say this.
To catch those.
All right.
That's funny.
Great. We will see this again at our next regularly scheduled meeting for a second reading and action. 5.4, exclusions and exemption from school attendance. This is policy JHD. Back to you, Dr. Bartlett.
Okay, and again, this is, like the other policy, it was revised to provide clarity and add medical, mental, or behavioral to the examples of an appropriately certified health professional. So the specific language in the very first paragraph it's actually the appropriately certified medical, mental, or behavioral health professional, and then such as a physician, a podiatrist, chiropractor, naturopathic doctor, osteopathist, and a psychologist was changed to the actual field of medicine, or to the medical doctors rather than the field of medicine that they practice. And then finally, at the very bottom, the date would change again to April 9th instead of the March 12th.
Well, I have one more question that's really related to the prior one, but since these are both related. You know how, and I don't know if it's still the case, we have always stated that if a student misses more than 10 days from a class, then what is the repercussion of that? And are these excused absences counted against that 10-day?
Yeah.
They are.
They are.
And so if a kid's sick and they can't get here and they can't be here, what is that repercussion? I can't remember.
Yeah, I don't recall.
It's actually 10%.
For the high school.
10%, not 10 days, but it's probably close.
Yeah, if we're talking about the high school, 10%
Yes.
over a year
Okay,
is 18 days.
18
okay.
days.
10% over
I thought
a
it
year.
it jeopardized earning credit.
That's what
for
I
the
thought
course.
too.
Well, yes, beyond
Yeah.
18, that's
Yes.
true. So,
Don't ask why I know
you know,
that.
there'd have to be an exception here as far as,
There are exclusions and exemptions that they could file. So if it's a long-term illness, they would do an exclusion and exemption from school, which would then preclude them from this 9 days.
Okay,
and we have homebound students, of course,
right.
whom we serve not at campus, but at their home for that reason.
Okay.
So there are some exceptions.
and it obviously, this policy contemplates getting work to them, and if they're keeping up on the work and they're not actually missing all of that instruction because they're keeping up with the work.
The high school really works with the kids on
Yeah,
that.
okay.
They really do.
Okay, good. I just was, the excused absence vis-à-vis unexcused, there's still the repercussion with an excused absence. Okay.
As far as the credits.
Yeah, we're pretty tight on middle and high school. It's elementary, frankly,
Yeah.
where there isn't that limit.
Right.
Oh,
So you have to work with individual families about extended absenteeism for vacations and
yeah, I would think that at the
or whatever
elementary school
or
level,
whatever else.
parents
Whatever.
might be a little less rigorous about getting their kids
I'm
into
speaking
school.
generally.
I know.
Well, there is still that 10% for elementary students,
There is.
but it's then they would be in jeopardy of being retained.
Yeah, the consequences
And
are
so-
different.
Gotcha.
We don't typically go there unless it's an extreme
Try to
case.
work
We
with the
try to work with
parents.
parents.
Gotcha.
Because they're responsible for making sure their children are in school.
To add just briefly, for your awareness, as the excuses start to get to that 10% mark, then the parent and the student will start to get emails saying, basically, hey, what's going on type of thing. And so there is that early opportunity, to engage and lean into that. There are also, as Dr. Bartlett said, forms available for chronic conditions that can be filed that then exempt the child from that 10% situation. And those require a certified medical professional to be involved at that point as well. So certainly from a parent's perspective, I'm very comfortable with the way that it's handled and the protocol, the safety catches that are in place to ensure the students getting what they need, but at the same time, getting them in school as much as possible and homebound services when that makes sense as well.
I think you're all doing a correct up job.
I do have a comment though back on the policy. I would ask that you consider adding, since we already have the word, I'm on the first sentence, sorry, since we already have the word certified, I would request consideration of the inclusion of the word therapist. And that's because there's such a shortage of psychologists for children and adolescents in Tucson that a lot of parents, I should say, are having to take their child to the therapist instead of being able to get into a psychologist. And so long as they're a certified therapist, although they can't prescribe medications, of course, they can treat and have a point of view on exclusions and exemptions needed.
Are you right at the beginning of the?
Yes.
First sentence.
Where you've put
You've
in all the
added
medical
certified
providers.
medical,
Yeah.
mental, or behavioral health professionals such as a physician, podiatrist, chiropractor, naturopathic doctor, osteopathist, psychologist, comma, therapist.
Yeah, we'll need to check what the law
Yes.
Yeah,
requires.
exactly.
And if
Exactly.
this is it, this is it.
Exactly.
But if we have some latitude in adding,
Yep.
makes sense.
You see where we're at, Denise?
Yes, I do.
Might not know the answer, but I'll ask Grace. Have we seen a lot more exemptions in the post-COVID era we did before?
Yes,
I mean, I figured, I just didn't know.
yes, we have.
And more immediately after, when we came back.
So we had a bunch right
In-
afterwards.
in-
It was
When
slowly
we came
getting
back
back.
in person, and of course,
Yeah.
we stopped providing any remote option.
Right.
So,
How much it's hanging on.
Not a great
Questions,
deal.
all?
I mean, we have them, yes, but not a great deal. I wouldn't call it a great deal.
That's all I was curious.
kids want to be with each other.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. We'll see it again. And we will move on to item 6, discussion and reports, the Arizona legislative/governmental activity. They're actually in Israel right now, and yeah, so not much is going on as we speak. Anyone have anything they'd like to share or discuss here?
I'd like to know about the budget, but they're not even breathing a word about that, so,
Nothing at all.
no.
Because we're on a need-to-know basis.
Yeah, we feel like we need to know now.
Yeah. That would be good.
They're required by law to pass a budget, can't defer on that, but they have right up until 1 minute before midnight on June 30th. So
They've come pretty close.
most of the
In
time.
prior years, yeah.
So it makes planning really challenging.
Yep.
All right. Anyone have anything they would like to add under future agenda considerations? We do have agenda planning, we're, quick reschedule for Thursday at 3:30 with Gina and I, both remote. Mary?
Got it.
Okay. And we'll talk about agendas there. Okay. I am looking for a motion to move into an executive session. And for those folks that are in the audience, we'll move to go into executive session. And we will have our executive session. There'll be no official action taken, no voting going on in an executive session. We will reconvene to regular session for the sole purpose of adjourning the meeting. There will be no further business discussed after we reconvene into the regular session. So folks are free to hang out while we're in our executive session in the hallway. But again, there will be nothing to see other than us vote to adjourn the meeting as a whole. So you may wish to salvage the rest of your evening. Thank everybody for coming. I appreciate it. And then, where is our cover memorandum for